The crystal carafe shattered against the edge of the mahogany desk, sending a spray of ice-cold sparkling water across Maya's worn, polyester skirt. Maximilian Thorne didn't even flinch. He remained hunched over his gold-plated tablet, his thumb flicking through stock charts with a violent rhythm. He didn't look up to see the water dripping onto Maya's shoes. He didn't look up to see her hand trembling as she reached for the glass shards. "You're breathing too loudly, Maya," Max snapped, his voice a low, predatory growl. "Every breath you take is a distraction from the $10 million I'm losing on the Shanghai route. Why are you still standing there? Do you think the glass is going to pick itself up? Or are you waiting for me to give you a tip for being the most incompetent assistant in the history of Thorne Global?" Maya stayed on her knees, her eyes fixed on the floor. She had learned long ago that looking Maximilian Thorne in the eye was like staring directly into a solar flare. It only resulted in getting burned. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thorne. It was an accident. I'll have the janitorial staff here in 1 minute." "Don't bother," Max spat, finally looking down at her with a gaze of pure, icy condescension. "The janitors have more utility than you do. At least they know how to handle a mop. You can't even handle a tray of water without making a scene. You're a mouse, Maya. A gray, dull, unremarkable little mouse that I keep around because I enjoy the irony of having someone so pathetic in a building this grand. Now, crawl out of here. I have a dinner to prepare for, and I don't want your average energy polluting the air when the Japanese board members arrive." Maya gathered the broken glass into her palm, a sharp edge slicing into her skin. She felt the sting, the warm trickle of blood, but she didn't let out a gasp. She stood up, her face a mask of dull, robotic compliance. "The Japanese delegation is confirmed for 7:00 p.m., sir. The German engineering team will meet you at the restaurant." Max scoffed, turning his chair away from her. "They're coming to see me, Maya, not the help. When we get to the restaurant, you will sit at the small table near the kitchen. You will speak to no one. You will take notes on your laptop, and if I see you looking at the guests, I'll fire you before the appetizers are served. Understood?" "Understood, Mr. Thorne," she whispered, backing toward the door. As she exited, she was nearly knocked over by Chloe, the director of brand image, who was really just Max's current socialite plaything. Chloe adjusted her designer sunglasses and let out a theatrical sigh of disgust. "Honestly, Max, I don't know how you stand it. She smells like—" "What is that?" "Lavender and student loans. It's depressing." Max's laughter echoed through the heavy doors as they swung shut. Maya stood in the hallway, the blood from her hand staining the white porcelain shards she held. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she walked to the service elevator, her footsteps silent. What they didn't know was that Maya wasn't just an assistant. She was a woman who had graduated top of her class in international relations, a polyglot who spoke 4 languages with the precision of a native, and an undercover agent for the Global Trade Commission. Maximilian Thorne thought he was hiring a clueless mouse to handle his paperwork. In reality, he had invited a silent executioner into his inner sanctum. "Before we head into the high-stakes dinner where Max decides to use his linguistic skills to humiliate Maya in front of the world's elite, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss the moment the mouse finally bites back. Comment, Team Maya, if you've ever been underestimated." The restaurant was a cathedral of excess, the Gilded Rose, where the tasting menu cost more than Maya's annual rent. Max sat at the head of a long, white-clothed table, flanked by Mr. Tanaka from Kyoto and Klaus from Berlin. Maya sat exactly where she was told, a tiny, cramped table near the swinging doors of the kitchen, her laptop open, her head bowed as if she were praying to the gods of data entry. Max began the evening with a display of pure, unadulterated hubris. He ordered for the entire table in a mixture of broken Japanese and accented German, laughing loudly at his own jokes. To the guests, he appeared a worldly titan. To Maya, who understood every syllable, he sounded like a child playing dress-up. As the second course arrived, Max leaned back, sipping a wine that cost 5 figures. He looked over at Maya, who was typing furiously, then turned to Klaus. He began to speak in High German, his tone dropping into a sneer. "Look at her, Klaus," Max said in German, assuming Maya's simple brain couldn't process the language. "She's the perfect example of the American workforce. Docile, uneducated, and grateful for the crumbs. I tell her she's a failure 10 times a day and she just says, 'Thank you, sir.' I think she's actually too stupid to feel shame. It's like having a pet that you don't have to house train." Klaus shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting toward Maya. "She seems very focused on her work, Maximilian. Is it necessary to speak of her this way?" "It's the only way to keep them in line," Max laughed, still in German. "If you give them an ounce of respect, they start thinking they're human. She's lucky I don't make her eat on the floor. Her father was a janitor, did you know that? It's in the blood. She was born to serve people like us." Maya's fingers didn't pause. She recorded every word. She felt the heat rising in her chest, a cold, sharp anger that she used to sharpen her focus. She knew the janitor Max was mocking was a man who had worked 3 jobs to put her through language school, a man with more dignity in his pinky finger than Max had in his entire lineage. Max then turned to Mr. Tanaka. He switched to Japanese, using a casual, almost disrespectful form of the language that made the Japanese board members stiffen. "Mr. Tanaka, don't worry about the woman in the corner. She is a baka, an idiot. I keep her around because she's invisible. It's useful to have someone who doesn't understand the complex nature of our merger. She thinks we're here to talk about ships. She has no idea I'm planning to siphon the tech patents out of your Kyoto plant before the ink is dry on the contract." Tanaka's eyes narrowed, but he remained silent, observing. Max took his silence for agreement. He leaned forward, his voice dripping with arrogance. "I've told her the contracts are standard. She's too lazy to read the fine print. By the time your lawyers see the software clause, I'll own the rights to your entire navigation system. And the best part, she'll be the one who filed the paperwork for me." Chloe, sitting next to Max, giggled. She didn't speak Japanese, but she knew Max was being cruel. "What are you saying, Max? Is it about her shoes again? They really are tragic." Max laughed, switching back to English. "I was just telling our guests that Maya is our most dedicated employee. She's so dedicated, she doesn't even realize she's helping me dismantle their companies. Isn't that right, Maya? Are you getting all this down?" Maya looked up for the first time. Her expression was blank, a perfect mask of the mouse Max expected. "Yes, Mr. Thorne. Every word is being recorded for the permanent record." "Good girl," Max said, turning back to his wine. "Now go get me a different napkin. This one feels like it was made for a peasant." The humiliation was reaching its peak. Max felt invincible. He had insulted her upbringing, her intelligence, and her family in 3 different languages, all while she sat 5 feet away. He thought he was the master of the game. He didn't realize that Maya wasn't just taking notes, she was preparing the gallows. If you can't wait to see Maya flip the script and destroy Max in front of his prestigious guests, hit that like button right now. And don't forget to comment Ghost, because Max is about to see exactly how invisible Maya really is. The third course, a delicate truffle risotto, was served, but the atmosphere at the table had turned brittle. Klaus and Tanaka were no longer smiling. They were seasoned businessmen, and they could smell the rot of Max's arrogance. Max, however, was too drunk on his own power to notice. He decided to go for the final kill. He looked at Maya and gestured for her to come to the main table. "Come here, Mouse. I want you to show our guests your special talent." Maya stood up slowly, her laptop tucked under her arm. She walked to the table, her head slightly bowed. "Mr. Tanaka," Max said in Japanese, his voice mocking, "I want you to see how well-trained she is. Maya, say I am a mindless servant in Japanese for the gentleman." The table went dead silent. The Japanese delegation looked horrified. Klaus dropped his fork. Even Chloe looked a bit stunned by the blatant cruelty. Maya didn't move, she didn't blink. She looked directly at Maximilian Thorne. The mouse was gone. The invisible auditor had arrived. She took a deep breath, and when she spoke, it wasn't the stuttering, shy voice Max was used to. It was a voice of pure, crystalline authority. And she spoke in High German, her accent so perfect that Klaus actually gasped. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her German flowing like a sharp, cold river. "I would be happy to translate for you, but perhaps we should start with the software clause you mentioned earlier, the one where you plan to defraud the Tanaka Group of their navigation patents. Or perhaps we should discuss the shell company you've set up in the Cayman Islands to hide the $30 million you've embezzled from the Thorne Global Pension Fund." Max's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the table. The wine spread like a bloodstain across the white cloth. What did you just say?" Maya didn't pause. She turned to Mr. Tanaka and spoke in imperial-style Japanese, the most formal and respectful dialect, reserved for royalty and highest honors. "Mr. Tanaka, I apologize for the behavior of this man. He has treated your culture with disdain because he thinks wealth is a substitute for character. He has been laughing at your ancestors while plotting to steal your future. Every word he has spoken tonight has been recorded and transmitted in real time to the Global Trade Commission." Tanaka stood up, his face a mask of iron. He looked at Max, then at Maya. He bowed, a deep, respectful bow to Maya. "The invisible auditor, we have heard of you. We did not know you were so close." Max tried to stand, but his knees buckled. "Maya, you're a spy. This is illegal. You can't record me." "It's not illegal when it's an active federal investigation into racketeering and international fraud, Maximilian," Maya said, her voice now in English, echoing through the silent restaurant. She looked at Chloe, who was trembling. "And Chloe, your brand image is about to include an orange jumpsuit. I've already flagged your accounts for the bonuses you took from the pension fund." The doors of the Gilded Rose burst open. A team of federal agents in dark jackets moved in, their badges gleaming under the chandeliers. Maya stepped back, handing her laptop to the lead agent. "Wait," Max screamed as the handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. "Maya, I can pay you. Whatever they're paying you, I'll double it. I'll triple it. Just tell them it was a mistake. Tell them I was joking." Maya looked at him, her eyes cold and final. She spoke one last time in a language Max didn't know, a rare dialect from her father's home village. It translated to, "The mountain doesn't care how loud the wind blows. It only waits for the wind to tire itself out." She walked out of the restaurant, past the shattered wine glass and the broken Billionaire. She didn't look back. She had spent 18 months as a mouse, but as she stepped into the cool night air, she felt like a queen. The silence following the click of the handcuffs was more deafening than Maximilian's screams. As the federal agents led him toward the exit, his polished leather shoes squeaked against the floor, a pathetic, rhythmic sound that replaced the booming authority he had wielded only minutes ago. The patrons of the Gilded Rose stared, their forks suspended in midair, as the titan of Thorne Global was marched past the kitchen doors he had ordered Maya to sit near. Maya stood by the table, her posture straight, her gaze steady. She watched as the agents began to bag Max's gold-plated tablet and the half-eaten truffle risotto. Chloe was being led out by a female agent, her designer handbag confiscated, her eyes darting around in a frantic search for a lawyer who wouldn't be coming. Klaus, the German engineer who had once been silent under Max's barrage of insults, stood up and smoothed his jacket. He walked over to Maya, looking at her with a profound sense of awe. "I have spent 30 years in the boardroom," Klaus said in English, his voice thick with emotion. "I have seen many men try to play the god, but I have never seen a woman play the ghost so perfectly. You let him bury himself, didn't you?" "Max didn't need much help," Maya replied, her voice calm and professional. "A man who thinks everyone else is beneath him eventually loses sight of the ground. He was always going to fall. I just made sure there was a record of the impact." Mr. Tanaka approached next. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he bowed, a full, formal bow that caused a ripple of whispers among the remaining diners. Maya-san, you spoke the dialect of my home, a dialect reserved for those of high character. My board members and I were prepared to be swindled tonight. We felt the trap, but we did not have the words to escape it. You gave us our voices back. The Trade Commission is already processing the formal complaints, Mr. Tanaka, Maya said, bowing back with the same level of respect. Your patents are secure. Thorne Global will be liquidated, and the first priority will be the restoration of the pension funds he drained. Your companies will be the primary beneficiaries of the restructuring. And you, Tanaka asked, his eyes searching hers. What becomes of the invisible auditor now? Surely you cannot return to the shadows after a display like this. Maya smiled, and for the first time it wasn't a mask. The shadows are very comfortable, Mr. Tanaka, but I think I've earned a few days in the sun. Perhaps I'll finally take that trip to Kyoto I've been documenting for everyone else. Before we dive into the second half of this hour-long epic, where Maximilian Thorne tries to use his last remaining secret to take Maya down with him, make sure you've hit that subscribe button. This story is far from over. Comment justice if you think Max got exactly what he deserved. 3 days later, Maya sat in a sterile interrogation room at the federal building. On the other side of the glass, Maximilian Thorne sat in an orange jumpsuit. He looked older, his hair unstyled, the arrogance stripped away to reveal a desperate, hollow core. He had refused to speak to anyone but her. Maya stepped into the room and sat down. She didn't bring a laptop. She didn't bring a notebook. She just brought herself. Max looked up, a twisted, bitter smile tugging at his lips. You look different without the polyester skirt, Maya. Or should I call you special agent? Maya is fine, she said, her voice echoing in the small room. Why am I here, Max? Your lawyers are already pleading for a deal. Why waste my time? Because you missed something, Max hissed, leaning across the table. The chains on his wrists rattled against the metal. You think you've won. You think Thorne Global was the only thing I was building. I have a backdoor server, encrypted. It contains the private records of every dignitary, every politician, and every CEO I've ever worked with. If I go down, I release the key. I'll burn the global economy to the ground just to see the look on your face. Maya didn't blink. She didn't show fear. She simply reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, silver thumb drive. She placed it on the table between them. You mean the Icarus server? Maya asked. Max's face went pale. How did you? You spoke about it 4 months ago, Maya said, her voice dropping into that cold, analytical tone that had terrified him at the restaurant. You were in the back of the limousine, speaking to your broker in Luxembourgish. You assumed that because it's a rare language, even a polyglot wouldn't recognize it. But you forgot one thing, Max. My father didn't just work as a janitor. He worked as a janitor at the Luxembourg embassy. I grew up listening to that language while I helped him polish the floors you mocked. Max slumped back into his chair, the last of his fire dying out. I accessed the server 3 weeks ago, Maya continued. The back door has been sealed. The data has been secured by the commission. There is no fire, Max. There isn't even a spark left. You're not a titan. You're just a man in a jumpsuit who forgot that the people who clean your floors are the ones who know where all the dirt is hidden. If you loved seeing Maya's final checkmate, make sure to like the video and share it with someone who loves a good twist. We're moving into the final batch where Maya receives a surprise she never expected from the Japanese delegation. Comment checkmate to show your support. Maya stood up to leave, but Max called out one last time. Why? Why stay for 18 months? You had enough to arrest me after 6. Why endure the coffee, the insults, the humiliation? Was it just for the theater? Maya paused at the door. She turned back, looking at him with a sense of pity that hurt more than any insult. I stayed because I wanted to see if there was a single moment where you would treat a human being with dignity without expecting something in return. I stayed to see if you were a monster by choice or by habit. And on the day you broke that carafe and told me my breath was a distraction, I realized you weren't a monster at all. You were just small. And I wanted to make sure that when you fell from the very top." She walked out of the room, leaving Maximilian Thorne in the silence he had once demanded from her. The story ends not in an office, but on a quiet pier in Kyoto. 2 weeks later, Maya was finally on her vacation. She was dressed in a simple, elegant kimono, watching the sunset reflect off the water. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, but she recognized the formal Japanese structure immediately. "The Tanaka Group has established a scholarship in your name, Maya-san. It is for children of service workers who wish to study linguistics. We have named it the Voice of the Ghost. Thank you for teaching us to listen." Maya tucked her phone away and looked out at the horizon. She had spent a year and a half being invisible, but as the sun dipped below the water, she felt seen in a way that money could never buy. The twist. In the very last scene, we see a young woman starting her first day as an assistant for a new, arrogant tech mogul in London. She looks shy, she looks clumsy, and she's wearing a thrift store blazer. She opens her notebook, and on the first page in Maya's handwriting it says, "Listen to everything. They always tell you their secrets when they think you're not there." The following weeks were a masterclass in the systematic dismantling of a legacy built on arrogance. As Maximilian Thorne sat in his cell, the world he had treated as his personal chessboard was being rearranged. Every contract he had signed with a smirk was being scrutinized. Every employee he had belittled was being interviewed. Maya returned to the Thorne Global headquarters, but this time she didn't use the service elevator. She walked through the front doors, the glass sliding open with a hiss that felt like a salute. The lobby was silent. The staff, who had once looked past her as if she were a ghost, now stood frozen, their eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe. She walked toward the executive elevators, her heels clicking against the marble with a newfound weight. As she reached the desk, she saw the new receptionist, a young woman who looked exactly how Maya had looked 18 months ago, nervous, overlooked, and clutching a stack of files. "I'm here for the final audit," Maya said, her voice echoing in the vast space. "Name, please," the girl stammered, her hands shaking. "Maya," she said, and then she smiled, a soft, encouraging look. "And don't worry, the person who used to yell at people in this building isn't coming back." She headed up to the top floor. The office was exactly as Max had left it, except for the broken carafe. Someone had finally cleaned up the glass. But the stain on the mahogany desk remained, a permanent reminder of the moment the mouse had decided to strike. Klaus was already there, representing the German contingent. He was looking out the window at the city skyline. "It looks different from up here when you aren't trying to own it, doesn't it?" "It looks like a responsibility," Maya replied, setting her tablet on the desk. "Not a prize." "The commission has finished the first round of asset recovery," Maya continued, her fingers dancing across the screen. "We've found an additional $12 million hidden in a series of art consultancy fees paid to Chloe's shell companies. We're redirecting those funds to the Thorne Global Scholarship Fund. We're renaming it the Integrity Initiative." Klaus nodded. "And what of the Japanese?" Tanaka-san is still shaken by the depth of the betrayal. He feels he has lost face for not seeing Thorne's heart sooner. "I'm flying to Kyoto tomorrow," Maya said. "Not as an auditor, but as a guest. He wants me to address his board. He wants them to understand that the language of business is not just numbers, it's observation." Before we get to the final twist involving Maya's true family legacy, one that Max never could have imagined even in his wildest dreams, make sure you hit that subscribe button. This story is reaching its ultimate climax. Comment, legacy, if you think Maya should take over the company. As Maya prepared to leave the office for the last time, her father called. "There's one more thing, Maya. Something we found in the deep storage archives of Max's private safe. It wasn't a digital file. It was a physical envelope. It has your name on it. Maya felt a chill. She met her father at the commission headquarters an hour later. He handed her a yellowed, dusty envelope. Inside was a letter dated 20 years ago. As Maya read the words, her breath caught. The letter wasn't from a business partner or a victim. It was from her own father, but not the man she called Dad. It was from the man who had founded the very building Max had stolen. It turned out that Maya wasn't just an auditor. Her biological father had been the original partner of the Thorne family, the man who had actually designed the logistics algorithms that made the company billions. Max's father had forced him out in a hostile takeover that left him broken and penniless. Maya's dad, the man who raised her, had been her father's best friend, a janitor at the embassy who had taken her in after her parents passed away in poverty. Maya hadn't just been auditing a criminal. She had been reclaiming a stolen inheritance. "You knew," Maya whispered, looking at the man who had raised her. "I knew you had to earn it," he said, his eyes misting over. "If I had told you at 21 that you owned that building, you would have been just like Max. You had to learn what it felt like to be at the bottom so you would know how to lead from the top." Maya looked at the letter, then at the skyline. She realized that every insult Max had hurled at her, every mockery of her commoner blood, had been an insult to the very bloodline that had given him his wealth. The ultimate twist: Maya didn't take the CEO position. She didn't want the gold-plated tablet or the mahogany desk. Instead, she converted the Thorne Global Headquarters into a global institute for ethical commerce and linguistic studies. The final shot of the video shows Maya standing in the lobby of the new institute. She's wearing a simple, elegant suit. A young man walks up to her, looking flustered. He's an intern, and he's accidentally spilled tea on the floor. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," he gasps, reaching for a napkin. "I'll clean it up right away. Please don't fire me." Maya kneels down, picks up a piece of the broken cup, and hands it to him with a smile. "It's just glass," she says in 3 different languages. "What matters is that you learn how to pick it up without cutting yourself. Welcome to the team." The following weeks served as the final structural collapse of Maximilian Thorne's world. While he sat in a sterile cell, the invisible auditor had become the most visible woman in the global financial sector. Maya spent her days in the very boardroom where she had once been told to sit in the corner, but now the seating chart had changed. She sat at the head of the table, flanked by federal liquidators and the directors of the Global Trade Commission. On the screens surrounding them, the faces of the international board members, Klaus, Mr. Tanaka, and others, looked on with a newfound sense of clarity. The mouse was gone. The architect had arrived. "We have successfully traced the Icarus server, secondary nodes," Maya said, her voice commanding the room. Maximilian wasn't just embezzling. He was using a linguistic encryption based on a dead dialect of Aramaic to hide the true destination of the pension funds. He thought no one would have the academic background to recognize the syntax. She paused, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. "He forgot that my father's janitor job at the embassy gave me access to the world's most extensive linguistic library. The funds have been recovered. All $30 million will be returned to the Thorne Global employees by the end of the business day." The room erupted into quiet murmurs of respect, but Maya wasn't finished. She had one final piece of business that didn't involve spreadsheets or legal filings. She had a ghost to lay to rest. She traveled to the outskirts of the city, to a small, weathered house that smelled of cedar and old books. Her father, the man who had raised her, the janitor, was sitting on the porch, a crate of apples at his feet. "You did it, Maya," he said, his voice thick with pride. "You didn't just catch him, you outsmarted him in every tongue he thought he owned." "I did it for you, Dad," Maya said, sitting beside him. "For every time he looked through you like you weren't a person. For every time he called us commoners." "We are commoners, Maya," her father said, taking her hand. "That's why we won." He was so busy looking at the stars that he didn't realize the earth was moving beneath his feet. He forgot that the people who build the world are the ones who truly understand it. Before we reveal the final, shocking twist, the secret that Max's father kept from Maya's father that changes everything about the Thorne global fortune, make sure you hit that subscribe button. This is the moment the entire 10,000-word story has been building toward. Comment, true power, if you believe character is more important than a bank account. Maya returned to the Thorne headquarters one last time to pack her things. She wasn't taking a desk or a title, she was taking her integrity. As she walked through the lobby, she saw Chloe sitting on a bench, waiting for her public defender. Chloe's designer clothes were wrinkled, and her head of PR, confidence, had evaporated into a cloud of desperation. "Maya," Chloe called out, her voice cracking, "please, just tell them I was a victim. Tell them he forced me to help him. You're a woman. You understand how it is." Maya stopped and looked at her. For the first time, she didn't feel anger. She felt a profound sense of distance. "I am a woman, Chloe, but I am also a worker. And I understand that you had 1,000 chances to do the right thing and you chose the shoes every single time. Language is for communication, Chloe. You used yours for cruelty. Now you'll have to learn the language of the courtroom." As Maya walked out, the sun was setting, turning the glass tower into a pillar of fire. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from the warden at the federal prison. "Thorne has requested a dictionary for his cell. He's trying to learn the dialect you used on your last day. He says he needs to know what the mountain said to the wind." Maya deleted the message. She didn't need him to understand. She had already spoken the only truth that mattered. The ultimate twist. In the final seconds of the video, Maya is seen opening a safe deposit box that belonged to her biological father. Inside is a patent for the very logistics algorithm that Max claimed he invented. It turns out the Thorne family didn't just fire Maya's father, they stole his genius. Maya didn't just take down a criminal, she reclaimed her family's legacy. She didn't sell the patent. She didn't restart the company. She made the algorithm open source, giving it to every small shipping business in the world for free. She broke the monopoly that Max had used to crush the little guy. Thank you for watching this 60-minute journey of hidden truth and linguistic revenge. Maya's story is a reminder that the world belongs to those who listen, not those who shout. If you loved this conclusion, please subscribe, like, and share the video. Comment open source to show your support for Maya's final move. We'll see you in the next story.